Hello and welcome. Today I am joined by Dr. Pippa Bennett, who is sport and exercise medicine doctor. And whereabouts are you speaking from today, Pippa?
I am home in Norfolk. I've been in Norfolk for the last 20 years. Yeah.
Good place to be. Good place to be. Although it's very hard to get to.
It is, which is one of its pluses, I think. But yes, it probably takes me, my usually stock answer, how long is it going to take me, is 2.5 hours. Wherever I'm going, it's usually 2.5 hours.
I'm in Manchester, so that'll be
It's a little bit more.
a little bit further. I used to work in Ipswich, so I know the A14 very well and making that route. So
Yeah, less spoken about Ipswich, the better, having been the Norwich City doctor. Thanks, Andy.
exactly, yeah. So out of interest, what is that shirt that you've got in the background?
So that's actually a new acquisition. I was very kindly given this. So I left the FA only a couple of weeks ago now. So that's my colleagues at Professional Women's Game very kindly gave me a signed Lioness shirt. There was a very old shirt up there, but I've swapped it for the new Lioness one. So
Amazing.
that's very
I
kind
mean,
of them.
I do think it's absolutely incredible. Women's football, it's just amazing what's happened over the last few years. What was it like being a part of it and then just from watching it yourself?
Oh, listen, I started at the FA with Hope back in 1999. And it's a very different beast now than it was then. So we would literally, there was just the senior team, and we would turf up for a training session and then go home again. And the players had, little or no support at all. So it was very much, the FA and England looked after all of the players back in the day, and it's just grown hugely. I think there's been some small tipping points over the years. I worked with them until 2013. So we were silver medalists in 2009, qualified for the World Cup in 2007, hadn't been on the world stage for 12 years. But clearly the huge tipping point was last summer with the Lionesses winning. And yes, I was not alone in being very teary that day. There was a lot of us who had worked in the women's game for a long time, and it was just all of those emotions for the previous goodness knows how many years coming out, and finally seeing them win. It's one thing being on the world stage and European stage, but winning on it, wow, it was fantastic to see, but wonderful that the players and the staff and everyone, it was the recognition that they stood on the shoulders of those players who went before them. I think that was, fantastic that the players and, as I say, a number of staff recognised that. So that was lovely. But yes, I was sobbing at the end, Andy, but with joy.
And yeah, I can very much imagine that'd be amazing. So you've been there for that's 24 years since you've been involved in that.
Thank you.
And
Yes.
well, I remember I coached football in America in '99, and it's such a massive sport over there. Women's game is huge, but over here it's nowhere near. While saying that, I mean, even the participation for men is massive over there, but certainly for women. And like it was at Brandy Chastain, wasn't it? And Mia Hamm, all the big names that were they were huge names, still are big names in the sport. But could you see the potential, or was there the vision and the mission to get to how big it is now in this country?
I think that was always the hope, but I think if we're being honest, it has exceeded people's expectations of where it is now. We didn't expect it to have the huge trajectory over the last few years that it's had. It was always sort of knocking on the door of that, but it's just hugely grown, and that's wonderful to see. That there's still some doors that we need to open. It needs to be more inclusive and inner city. We've lost our way a little bit in that, and I know the FA is addressing that big time. It has become a bit of a white middle class sport in this country, so we definitely need to address that. But yeah, it's oh gosh, when you think back to some of the battles that we had back in the day, people would just go, how is that possible? That what do you mean you weren't allowed to train on the same a next door pitch to the men's team? But that was the case, and it wasn't that long ago that women weren't allowed on certain pitches in certain training grounds at certain clubs in this country, because of the sexism involved. And that has been not banished, but it's being challenged more and more, and it's fantastic that the young players are going, why can't, how come I can't have women's boots? How white shorts, that's gone now. It's the recognition and the quality as well. It's just phenomenal. It's great to watch.
No, it definitely is, and it is really good to see it's translating to the junior game as well. I know that a colleague of mine, shout out to Ava, who's my colleague's daughter, she plays regularly. Another friend, again, it's really professional, good quality, good infrastructure, which I know for sure was definitely not the case when 5 years ago, 10 years ago.
I think medically we'll see the benefits of that going forward. So one of my not bugbears, but when we think about the injury rates in women's football, and everyone obviously talks about ACL quite rightly, although the rates are coming down, I'd like to add, through the good work of a lot of our colleagues in the clubs. But we are expecting our young players to not suddenly, but play at this, really high level. If they've not had the opportunity to move well as youngsters and had the opportunity to play football or other team sports, then they haven't developed those movement skills. And that is part and parcel of why we see the injury rates that we do, in my opinion. And I think there's been a couple of sort of research papers on that, but we mustn't forget that, those really important foundations have to be laid in order for our elite players to be robust enough to play at that level. And especially as the game is getting quicker and faster and more powerful, we're expecting a lot of our footballing athletes, I would say. You see, I'm still, having left football, my passion is still there. My heart is still with the women's game, I have to say, although I'm no longer working in it.
No, well, definitely, and it's quite nice to see you've been there from pretty much day one, from the sounds of it, through to the culmination of that victory, which was, again, it was massive. Just on outside of the sporting world, it just became a mainstream event, didn't it? Which is really, really good. So yeah, we as a family watched it. My mum, who never watches football, hates Dad watching it, but yeah, we all did watch it. So no, it was good. So no, well done on the victory.
Well, it was lovely to watch, and fingers crossed. Despite last night's results against Australia, and it's no bad thing. No bad thing to have a little bit of a hiccup and a wake-up call. But the Summer's World Cup will be a great watch as well. Shame it's a different time zone, but I'll be getting up early or staying up late to watch them. That's for sure.
Yeah. Oh, great. And then, so getting back to you then, so how did you get involved with going into sports medicine?
So yeah, I'm of that age that there wasn't a route before the specialty was formed. So I was a GP, and my initial thought as a GP was to be the specialist within my practice with musculoskeletal, and I loved sport, and Andy, I've got to be honest, I sort of fell into it really, doing a BASM introductory course, and then that opened my eyes to think, gosh, there's all sorts of things that I did not learn at med school and GP training, and that just whetted my appetite to learn more. So BASM introductory turned into diploma of sport and exercise medicine, turned into a master's, turned into visa application to be a consultant in sport and exercise medicine. So that was the sort of my learning routes. And again, I've got to say, right place, right time to fall into working in sport. So my first job was crowd doctor at Millwall. So I didn't take it lightly. I went straight in there. so I job shared that with my job share GP partner, and the club doctor at the time was Charlotte Cowie, and we got chatting, and then the rest is history. I kind of covered an England women's football camp for her, and then it just grew from then, and I was back playing football at the time as well, attempting to, at a very bad standard, but yes, so yes, I sort of fell into it, and then from there, it was a few years, but sort of starting to learn my trade with sports medicine. I soon thought, in order to challenge myself, I'd like to work in other sports, and I think the first other sport I got a gig with was hockey, actually. I think in sort of early 2000s, went away with Team England hockey to Argentina, then got the flavour of the love of learning about other sports, and yes, I haven't really stopped since, really. But yes, the women's game, as we've discussed, has always been in my heart, and that's been my mainstay. But yeah, worked with gymnastics, equestrian, and now in the Paralympic world. So I've always wanted to sort of challenge myself to learn about other sports, other issues in sport. So that's me in a nutshell.
I'll dig a bit more than
Okay.
just that overview. But so for the 99 then, so in 99 when you started working with the women's team, then how did that transpire?
So that was through Charlotte. So Charlotte was the doc at the time, and I think Anita Biswas had done some work as well. There's just a handful of docs that were working, had done some work with England team. And yeah, Charlotte asked me, could I cover a training camp? And I did, loved it. I guess I think Hope had not long become the manager, and I suppose I fitted in okay, and was asked to come back, and then eventually within sort of a year or so, I think Mary Thomas did it for a little while, and then I took over. I guess again, right time. Hope had this amazing strategy and vision to obviously expand the teams and to get the funding from the FA. And 2001 we went to European Championship. I was the doctor and the kit woman at the time, because we didn't have a kit person, so I did the kit as well. And then end of 2001, we got our first employed physio, because we just had consultant sort of physio at the time before then, and that was Lou Fawcett. And then Dawn Scott came on board as our fitness person. So we were a really tight-knit team back in the day. And in fact, there's a few of us from the old FA days that still get together every month or so and have a few drinks, which is lovely.
Yeah, and then so you mentioned that you were doing some work at EIS as well, and so is that at the similar sort of time that you were doing that along with your GP work?
Yeah, I gave up. I was doing more and more sports, so it became untenable to continue in GP land. I gave up my partnership in order to do sport. I then was doing less and less GP and more sport. So I eventually sort of relinquished my. You have to be on a performers list for general practice, and I relinquished that. I suppose in early something like 2005, 2006. I did my last GP stint, and that was always my safety net. But yeah, I jumped ship from general practice into sports medicine, sort of pretty much full time. But as I say, what I felt was I was getting very increasingly skilled in sports medicine in football, but there was this big wide world of other sports, and so hockey, and then being able to do a few locum sessions at the English Institute of Sport. Multi-sport clinic came about. Northwick Park was the old intensive rehab unit, so I did a few sessions there, a few locum sessions at Loughborough, and just got my foot in the door, but with a view to, I just wanted to expand my understanding and knowledge with other athletes, other coaches, other organisations. was me.
And so, like, I can imagine a very solid job having a GP job. You're doing that. So financially, without going into specifics, like how big a risk was that for you to do that? Was it comparable?
Oh, listen, Andy, if I'd stayed in general practice, I would be retired on a very nice NHS pension by now. So yes, whereas I've now still got a mortgage to pay off, and so yes, it was a risk, but it was, yeah, it was. I say I would have retired. You know, I know a lot of my colleagues didn't last in general practice because of the workload, etc. But I just loved, you know, working in sport and you know, the opportunities it gave me. It was just yeah, it was a big step, but definitely one worth taking, I think.
And then you mentioned about well, you're in Norfolk at the moment, and you end up working at Norwich City. So how did that come about?
So I left England teams in 2013. I'd always worked with Hope as manager. I was going to go anyway. I'd done, you know, a fair few years with England teams, a fair few tournaments, etc. So I needed to, but I stepped down when she left, and I left gymnastics as well. So there was a little hiatus where I was earning, you know, I was doing some private work in London, but kind of wanting to get back into sport. And yeah, it was combo, I think, of LinkedIn and being approached by an agency. I was actually away at the European Games, doing a polyclinic role in Baku when I got approached to would I consider, it was a thinly guised, would I consider a Premier League job in East Anglia, and there's only one Premier League team in East Anglia, as you well know, and they play in yellow and green, or they did, and hopefully will do in the future. So and my boys are Norwich City fans, and again, it's a challenge. I'd not worked in the club setting, in the men's club. I thought, let's give this a go, and I had 3 really good seasons with them. So yeah, that was me.
Yeah. So, like, what was it when you went in there? Then was it what you were expecting, having come from like the women DFA side?
I think it probably was. I think I underestimated, and hats off to anyone. I did 3 seasons. Won't go into why I left, but I did 3 seasons with them, and I underestimated the relentless nature of club football, I've got to say. And as I say, hats off to colleagues, you know, and particularly physios, because it is 24/7. You know, you get those 2, if you're lucky, maybe 3 weeks off in the off season. Otherwise it is, and especially we got relegated after that one season in Championship, it's even more relentless because of the schedule. So that's the only thing I think I underestimated, in terms of the workload and just the relentless nature of, you know, Saturday to Saturday or Saturday to Tuesday to Saturday type approach. I'm gonna, yeah, but yeah, transfer deadline day was quite entertaining when the first season I was there. When Daniel Farker came in, it was very organised and everything pretty much had been done before transfer deadline day. But that was quite an entertaining day each time. Yeah, last minute signings. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Norwich always have the outlook, albeit they do yo-yo a bit between the Premier League and Championship, but they always seem like a really well-run club. You know, Delia Smith, and it's got that sort of nice feel to it. Is that accurate?
Yeah, definitely. You do feel very quickly, you know, part of the family, part of Delia and Michael's family. They care passionately about that club, and as do obviously the fans. It is a you know, a home city club. It's got a good feel. There's some very good people there, very good people.
So at what point did you realise, when you come to the end of that 3 years, that you think actually this is maybe had a bit of you know, quite an intense period?
Yeah, the intensity to some extent, but I think what I missed was in my first year, and yeah, most of my time there and until the end, it was very much a really close-knit MDT and an MDT approach to looking after the athletes, and I felt I didn't feel as part of that MDT as I did right from the beginning. So yeah, that's what I thrive on, working with my colleagues. Let's take a collective approach to this that's athlete centered. Not sure that was quite the case toward the end, and that's why I left.
And then, so what did you go on to do from there?
Gosh, what did I go on to do? So I was fairly full time, and then I was asked to be part time at the club, which it was part of the reasoning for leaving. And so the other part of my time, I actually rejoined the FA with a role with overseeing the women's professional game. That also then morphed into later looking after the England Para teams, which was awesome. And I'm not alone. This sounds like I had lots of jobs all at once, which I did. And I'm not alone in that in sports medicine. There's very few that are full time. I'm not quite sure how I did all of this. And I can't remember the exact timelines, but I also became Chief Medical Officer of Equestrian, British Equestrian, around about a similar sort of time. So yeah, I again, another challenge. I was Chief Medical Officer with Gymnastics. I can't do a cartwheel. I was Chief Medical Officer of Equestrian. I can't ride. So yes, that's what I did. So I kind of comboed equestrian and football for a wee while. Yeah.
Right. So yeah, that is quite a diverse. Where was equestrian? Where are they based?
So again, they're based all over. And the brilliant thing with equestrian is actually you've got four sports in one. So you have dressage, show jumping, 3-day eventing, and para dressage. So very, very different, and you know, different sort of almost ethos in those sports, and certainly different skill sets in the athletes and the horses. I don't pretend to understand the equestrian side, the horsey side of it, but very different horses. So yes, all over basically. So probably one of the most decentralized sports out there, I would say. So I'd go to some of the events over in this country, like Burley and at Badminton. Went to the World Equestrian Games in America with them, and then otherwise, you know, would just look after the athletes remotely, go to their consults, and you know, for example, show jumper, you know, get that show jumper in to have a back operation, and make sure I went to the consults with him in London, that sort of thing. So yeah, varied, very varied.
I mean, you've literally been in the Millwall crowd to go through to equestrian. that feels like that really is the exact opposite world.
Yeah. I guess so. Yeah, which I love. That's I'm from. I guess that probably is. Yeah, I'm from a very varied background. From, you know, living in India and having servants, to living in a council house in Swanley. So that's probably yeah, perhaps my professional life has mirrored my personal life, Andy. Maybe that's it. We're getting very deep now.
No, that's good. Yeah, I know that I forgot to ask you at the start actually how you got why medicine in the first place, and I'm intrigued by living in India now as well.
Okay. Medicine. Look, to be really deep, I had to work blimmin' hard to get my A levels and get into med school, and equally hard at med school. I'm not academically, you know, very, very bright, but doing something that actually makes a difference in people's lives. I don't want to be too sort of twee about it, but you know, that's an absolute privilege, isn't it, to make a difference in someone's life. That's what I wanted to do, really. I'm not sure I could articulate that as an 18-year-old, but that's, when I look back, that's what I wanted to do. Something with science, but actually making a difference in someone's life was the ultimate. Yeah. And India I lived in India when I was little until I was 4. So my mum's was born in India. We have a whole sort of ancestry from India. So haven't been back for many years. I must go soon.
Right. So what age did you live there until then?
Came back when I was 4. So
Okay.
yes.
So you don't remember too much about it?
I don't remember anything, no, but it's strange whenever I hear Hindi or Bengali, it sounds familiar because I was as fluent as a 4-year-old could be. I was fluent. So yes, yeah. So yeah.
That's crazy, isn't it? That's I bearing in mind my girlfriend's got red hair, but I recently found out she's quarter Indian, and she really doesn't look it at all. But yeah, it's India's. I've never been. It seems such a fascinating country, and yeah, I would love to try that at some point.
Yeah. I on my list. I've been back a couple of times, but not for many years. And but Kerala was my dad. My dad passed away in 2007, and I need to go back to Kerala because that was his favorite state. He loved Kerala, so that's on my to-do list at some point.
So yeah, then get back to the equestrian then. So how long were you there for?
So equestrian just for 3 or 4 years. I didn't. I gave up equestrian because the opportunity to become the Chief Medical Officer of Paralympics GB came about. So there's only so many jobs I could juggle. So beginning of last year, Stuart Miller, I was fortunate to be asked to go to Tokyo with Paralympics GB as part of the HQ team. And Stuart was the head honcho. He was retiring, so I threw my hat in the ring to be CMO, and I was successful in that beginning of last year. So I gave up equestrian in order to do that role. So planning for Paris. We're interviewing on Monday next week for the HQ team. Paris and LA I'm signed up for.
Amazing. So what was it about that in particular that made you want to go for that role?
Tokyo was, COVID aside, it was just amazing to be part of an HQ team again and to be part of Paralympics. Prior to taking up the role at Norwich, I had been given the role of prep camp for Rio and had to turn that down because I got the Norwich job. So there's always a part of me that was okay. There's unfinished business, and I kind of, I don't like having to turn things down that I'd already accepted. So it's such a privilege to be part of a Paralympics GB team, and to be at a multi-sports games. Anyone that's had that opportunity, it is life affirming to go to these things, and slightly addictive, I have to say, going to multi-sport games. So just being part of that again for Paralympics GB for Paris and LA was too much of an opportunity not to go for. So I'm really pleased to be part of them. Yeah.
Well, definitely. Now, how intense is it then pulling that together? Because if everything is culminating in a 4-year thing, it's like there's a lot of pressure on it, but for you, not just the people that are participating, but the people that are preparing for it.
It is, but as that almost backup to the backup. So the backup teams for the sports come in, and really as an HQ, we are, as I say, the backup of the backup. And whilst there may be pressure, I think our role is that we talk about sort of relaxed professionalism with the BPA and Paralympics GB. So it's a relaxed atmosphere. What we want for not only the athletes but also the support staff with the sports is they walk into the HQ and it's just an air of calm. It's don't worry about the result, don't worry about competition, whatever. We've got your back. Your room is sorted. The HQ medical team. We're here to help, and and it's just that relaxed atmosphere so that they can focus on the performance that, you know, that day or the next day. We might be behind the scenes running around like headless chickens getting things sorted, but that we portray, hopefully, that, as they relaxed professionalism is what we're all about.
And then you mentioned earlier on, which I presume you're being slightly modest when you're saying you weren't particularly academic when you had to work really hard to do it, which I'm sure you did. But like a number of people that I've spoken with about that have said, yeah, there's better doctors out there, better physios academically, but they go on to have big roles like you've had. So when you're recruiting people, there's obviously the academic qualifications, but what other things are you looking for?
To put it really simply, and especially for, you know, something like a multi-sport games, it's low ego and high emotional intelligence. That's it, really, really simply. So, you know, recruiting for, you know, doctors, physios, nurses, whoever certainly for multi-sport games, but even for, you know, a sport, are you prepared to put the graft in? You know, do you get on with people? Can you communicate? Can you listen? And can you not be busy? You know, it's not about you. It's about the athletes. But when you're needed, can you step up to the plate? And I remember years ago, and I forget who it was talking. This was specifically about docs, but it could be any of us really. And it was 3 things: that they were affable, available, and able, and in that order. So you're affable. Do you get on with people? You've got to get on with people, haven't you? You can't be that kind of disruptor, or, you know, you're going to annoy the heck out of the manager within 5 minutes of walking in the door. Are you available? You've got to pick up the phone, especially in elite sports. You can't have that mentality of, this is not, you know, I don't work on Tuesdays. If you needed, you know, we're not going to really, you know, take advantage horrendously, but you need to be available and then able. The clinical it almost has to be a given that you know what you're talking about, and you're able. It's affable and available. It comes ahead, I think. I forget who said it. I've stolen that from somebody, but I can't remember who.
Someone else on here has mentioned that, and I can't think who it was. But only one other person mentioned it. So now that's interesting that you brought that up as well. And then how do you assess for that? Is it purely just in an interview setting? You just communications or what?
Yeah, it is. It's team fit, and I don't suppose this will go out before the interviews on Monday, so I can, you know, we will do a big team fit thing, and through scenarios, you know, it's how people come across, eye contact with you know, you know, so it's the verbal and the non-verbal skills that people display. But yes, I haven't got a sort of a given formula for that, but yeah, we normally can spot the good ones out there anyway.
Yeah, well, good luck for Monday. It won't go out before then anyway. Okay. So that's good. And then in terms of, for like you, did you have like a vision or anything when you were coming into this? Do you have anything?
Gosh, no, I didn't know where it was going to go, Andy, if I'm being honest. Did I think back in the early 2000s I'd go to Beijing Olympics and London 2012? No idea, not a chance. But that's the beauty. Sometimes you just got to go with the flow and follow where your heart takes you. Yeah, the bank balance didn't quite follow, but yeah, yeah. So no, I honestly didn't have a vision for it. I don't know where my next venture will take me. But I'm you know, I'm very happy doing what I'm doing now with a combination of, say, CMO for Paralympics, and as of sort of 2 weeks ago, Director of Clinical Governance for English Institute of Sport. So I think that'll probably see me out until my retirement, probably. Who knows?
Yeah, well, I was chatting with Nigel Jones about governance, and he was talking about it from British Cycling, and he was
Yeah,
saying how important it is, and to getting the infrastructures in place. And we know cycling about some issues over there historically.
yeah.
But what's your view on that governance piece?
It is absolutely vital, and obviously, Nigel's done a fantastic job with cycling from a really difficult position, and some of my colleagues in other sports have had some challenges. I think it's being recognised more and more that clinical governance, and it's not just sort of the medics, it's actually everybody that surrounds an athlete, a patient. It's making sure that we have the right people doing the right thing at the right time. That's ultimately what clinical governance is about, and that's everybody's responsibility. And certainly from an Olympic and Paralympic sport point of view, UK sport recognise this, because it's not just about the winning, it's the winning well. And winning well is all about clinical governance. The well bit is what that's what we need to make sure that we put around every athlete, that yes, they're winning, but they're winning well. We are giving them every support needed around their life, treating them as people first, athletes second. So that's it's probably been highlighted, unfortunately, by the sort of the negative stuff that's come out, the White Review, etc. And but yeah, it's now being sort of, I think it's right up there on people's agenda, both from a sports point of view, but also a sports sort of governing point of view from UK sport and professional sport.
Yeah, no, it's definitely crucial. And Nigel was saying, just for the clinicians themselves to have those things in place to cover the clinicians.
Yeah, very much so. And what I'd love to do within the English Institute of Sport, which is soon to become UK Sports Institute, kind of rebranding, but also with colleagues in Scotland and Wales and Northern Ireland and the faculty, is making sure that all of our sports doctors across the piece have that support around them, so that they're not isolated. And the same for any other practitioner. They need that kind of communities and practice and support, not just for the athletes that they serve, but also for themselves. So that's what we need to make sure there's nothing. I was chatting to a young doc earlier who's just taking up a role with a para sport, is we can't leave people isolated. That's when they become vulnerable, and actually their actions can be sometimes problematic. That's when the issues occur, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, good luck with that. I know it's a big role, but an important one.
Thank you.
And then in terms of for you then, so are there any people that you think have been really influential within helping you get to where you have?
Well, I've got to say, Charlotte Cowie is, got a shout out to Charlotte. I think if our paths hadn't crossed back in the day at the Den, who knows what I'd be doing. Hope Powell has been hugely influential for me, developing my career, but just developing me as a person, and she's a really good close friend, and a physio friend, colleague of mine, Louise Fawcett, who's had amazing career herself, and is the head of performance support at British Gymnastics. She was my line manager when I was a CMO there, and we're good friends. And she's been has inspired me over many years. That's probably the three women. I haven't named a bloke, have I? Sorry, guys. I'm sure there's a bloke out there somewhere, but three women definitely inspired me. My sons, there we go. My boys, my two sons, they inspire me.
I'll cut out that middle bit before you mention them. So that was yeah, no, great. And then how do you switch off?
I play golf, trying to get my handicap down. I'm actually away next week, playing golf for 3 days, taking a few days off. I walk my 2 cockapoo dogs and look after my granddaughter. So I'm a granny now. So that's how I switch off. So they're my happy places, Andy. That's how I switch off. Yeah.
Yeah, no, sounds good. And then in terms of your own personal development and professional development, this I'm always looking for. Although I said this to Nigel, and he was like, "I want to spend time with my family. I don't want to be reading books on self-development and all of those things." But I quite like them. So are there any particular? Are you into that sort of thing? Do you read any books like that?
I do. Please don't ask me what I've read recently because my memory is a shocker. So I do. And I'm now in that world of senior leadership teams and going to board meetings and that sort of thing. So my development now is very much, how can I improve as a leader? So that's where my CPD has sort of taken me, and that's my professional development plan is all about sort of in my leadership skills. Yeah. So, but yes, don't ask me to quote a book recently. I do read them, but I'm terrible at remembering them.
I'd recommend Simon Sinek's stuff if you've not seen his.
Yeah. Understand the why. Yeah.
Yeah, no, exactly. I'm sure you've been with many amazing leaders and coaches who who are talking through this at really the absolute top of the game. So you see it firsthand a lot of the time, anyway.
Yeah, and again, I suppose the three women I mentioned, they're all leaders in their own right, and and with similar, slightly different styles. And the one thing that I did think of the other day, I can't remember why, but it's just popped into my head, is you remember people for not what they said, partly because I can never remember it, but it's actually how they made you feel. So that's for me, that's the key. How did that person make me feel? And they're the ones that if they made you feel empowered or inspired or positive things, they're the people that you need in your life, I think. Gosh, we've got all deep again, Andy.
That's a perfect way to finish. That's a really good one. No, it's good. It's true. But I agree with it. And you can tell you that you mean it with those things, and it is true, really, isn't it? It's all about interpersonal relationships and all of those things. So, look, Pippa, I really appreciate your time on that. I've really enjoyed it. So, thank you for finding the time.
No, thank you. Hopefully that all, you probably have to edit a few of me. Waffle.
No, not at all. No, that's going to inspire people of the future as well. You see, so that's you will be on that list soon for other people. I'm sure you already are anyway.
Oh, I don't know. The talking of inspiring, let me just my granddaughter's just crawled in. Come on, say hello. She loves coming to say. Let me just take those out for a sec. Come here. Oh, come and say hello. Oh, say hiya.
Hello.
Hello. Say hi, get away.
Hello.
Yeah.
Who are you? What's your name?
This is Charlotte.
Hello.
Yeah.
Now I would be impressed if if she's named after Charlotte Cowie.
She isn't named after Charlotte Cowie. No.
Who's over there? Who's that?
Balloons.
Balloons.
Balloons. Because you were one, weren't you, a couple of weeks ago?
Wow. Oh. She is a natural in front of the camera already.
She loves it. Yes, she's appeared on many a Teams call. Okay, see ya. Go play with the doggies.
Oh, very, very cute. Yeah.
Good stuff.
Good. Well, I'll let you get back to that anyway. But thank you, Pippa. I really appreciate that.
You're welcome. All right. Let me know when it's out.
I shall do.
Okay.
Thanks,
Take
Pippa.
care, Andy. Cheers now.
Bye-bye.